Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Three Idiots Talk Aquariums podcast. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've been enjoying the previous episodes. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff if you can. It helps us out a lot. We really appreciate it. And the other thing I was wanting to say is, if you guys have any ideas for like things that you want to hear about, like topics or like questions you want to ask or anything like that, feel free to let us know. We'll definitely, we can make it like a Q&A segment or something. But we also have, I believe that the other Cam was wanting to do a Q&A episode. So if you guys have any questions that you want to know the answers to, preferably fish related, but, suppose it doesn't have to be, feel free to let us know in the either YouTube comments, or you can like DM any one of us on like Facebook or like Instagram, or email us or phone us or come into the shops, or
we've also got a Facebook page for this podcast as well.
Oh, you forgot about that.
Yeah, maybe our 3 followers can use it.
Maybe Cam's listener can give us some things that
I got 2 listeners.
Cam has a mysterious listener that keeps giving him feedback that seems to lean into everything that Cam wants to do and everything that Cam keeps saying to us, which is
I'm just relaying the information to what the people want.
Firstly,
Messenger.
Firstly, it's unbelievable that anyone actually listens to us. Secondly, it's unbelievable that anyone actually agrees with Cam. So, we'll see what Cam's mysterious listener, aka Cam, has for questions for himself.
Oh dear.
Sure. And I suppose anyone else, don't feel excluded. You're more than welcome to ask us some nuggets of information.
Ryan's
but yeah,
inclusion, is he?
You what? Sorry.
Ryan's not very good at inclusion, is he?
Racist.
I'm not racist.
All right.
I was going to say phobiast on everything related to Nelson and people and us, clearly.
I don't. I mean, to be fair, he does live in Helensville, so he pretty much lives in North Island, Nelson. So.
Also, people that don't live in Nelson, aren't a different race. They're just inbred.
You're going to get cancelled. You're going to get cancelled.
Anyway.
All right.
I actually been to Nelson, and it is quite nice. I just hassle Cam because he looks like a hillbilly. So, fair enough.
Deep breath. All right. So, if we're staying on topic, what has been happening in your guys' fish rooms / fish stores that is exciting or interesting? You can go first, Ryan. You're the lucky first.
Yes, teacher beer. You definitely got your teacher voice on for that one.
Yeah, man.
That was good.
I did want to be a teacher once upon a time.
You wanted to be a teacher?
Long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's interesting. You can come into Kim's class and bring that fish tank in and have like 30 little beady eyes looking at you, and yeah, I didn't like it. It's not very nice. They just always ask questions and stuff, and they're full on.
Questions is the best part.
Yeah, well, there you go. You've got a job.
Education. Now I'm a fish teacher. I teach people fish.
Fish teacher.
More fun.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. No, I haven't. Well, I've been told that I can't keep saying I haven't had anything happen. So I've just been, I've pulled out, I've disconnected one leaky tank that I'm going to fix. So that's going to be good. I'm going to try and fix all the leaky tanks. I've got 2 there sitting there that are leaky. So I've got to fix them and get them going and use them. But been doing a big sort out to try and get some cool fish for Cam. So that's the main thing that I've been doing.
I have a question for you. So yesterday I had a customer come in who had been looking on your Facebook and saw a video of the Kawanga Golds. So what's going on with them? I was asked to ask you.
We don't talk about Kawanga Golds.
Is it only males you have left?
No, they're there. I've got a male and 5 females, and they just don't breed. Well, they breed and then don't do anything. So I
That's your
think the
jinx
male,
tank, though,
I
isn't
think
it?
the male is infertile.
Oh, nice. Well, that's not going to help.
So he doesn't do much. I have asked around to see if I can find the male, but they are pretty much unobtainium. So it's we'll just have to see how we go with them. I might
I
start
reckon
mucking
it's
it.
just. I reckon it's just you need to move all the fish out of that tank. I reckon that tank's jinxed. That's the one with the dubs that trophies that don't breed.
Yeah, but none of my trophies breed, so
Fair
it's
enough.
not the tank, it's something else. But anyway, I'm thinking about stuffing with the water conditions in there maybe a bit, and see if I've seen some research on higher pHs for Africans causing higher fertility. So I will.
Why don't you chuck some stability in there? That'll help.
Are they the same as any Mbuna and fairly easy to spawn, or are they one of these mythical things that are really difficult to actually spawn?
No, they've definitely spawned frequently.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's definitely been egg. I mean, initially I thought the females were just inexperienced or crap, but then what's the odds of 5 of them being
5.
bad? You know, like even most Mbuna from 5 centimeters will hold successfully. So it's it's unlikely to be that. I have taken some eggs and tried to tumble them. I'm not a fan of tumbling, but I thought I'd give it a go, and I got none hatch at all as well. So it leads me to think it's a fertility issue. I did hope he would have grown out of it, but he's getting pretty big now. So not good.
Keep them fingers crossed, eh?
But that was a good question, because I've had a lot of people ask me about them, and I'd love to get them out there, because to my knowledge, they're the last ones left in the country. So yeah.
Are they?
Well, that's
Are
sad.
they on the legal import list?
They are allowed to be imported under Pseudotropheus species.
Yeah. Okay.
But you've got to make a few connections and find an importer that's willing to make those connections, and you also have to use a couple of old names, because obviously they've been reclassified from Pseudotropheus a couple of times now. And so I think they're a Metroclimber or something, or something else even. They keep getting changed. So yeah, they probably technically legally could be imported, and they obviously technically were legally imported to begin with. But it'll just be depending if you can find them, and if you can find an importer who's willing to jump through the hoops.
Yeah, getting on board for you.
I think you mean you just got to have a lot of money.
Yeah, you could throw money at that problem definitely and get some, but
why don't you? You're the Mr. Rich guy in Helensville. You're like the
Sell some more insect screens and do it for me.
millionaire of Helensville.
oh yeah, I've got a whole garage full of rear wiper blades to sell at my garage. So.
Oi, too soon. Too soon.
I run a rear wiper industry out in Helensville of stealing rear wipers off cars. So
10 out of 10 disappointed.
Look out, man! You're a person of interest in the police at the moment. They might be listening.
Yeah, I think they've gone now, so I can do what I like.
All right, Cam. What have you had anything interesting or notable going on for you down your ways?
Yeah, I've had lots, and none of it's been positive.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Came in on Monday, found out my CO2 bottle was empty after about 4 days, so that was a good waste of $80. There was a leak clearly in the system somewhere, which I wasn't aware of. Also came in on Monday and checked out my big tank, and my 4 largest blue dolphins were murdered and well and truly dead. So that was also happy days. Ryan theorizes that the frontoses kicked their ass due to some spawning behavior, which is what I'm sitting with at the moment. Came into work yesterday, and my display tank had a big crack in it, so there was water everywhere. So we're on a pretty good run here so far this week. So at 120 or so liters of water on the ground, no fish issues, no plant issues, so that was happy days. And right at the end of the day yesterday, I worked out that one of the other display tanks has got white spot on it. So it's it's all coming out Millhouse down here.
Fair enough. I suppose not had anything bad happen today, so that's a bonus. It is
Well,
6 a.m., but
I've walked in the door and I've turned the lights on and walked into this room, so I haven't done anything yet. So we'll see how we go.
oh, touch wood, you'll be all right.
Sometimes for you that could be a good thing, though. You know, like if you haven't walked into a wall or fallen over or something, that's good. You know, like,
Progress. Looking on the bright
Yeah.
side.
yeah. And at least your car started and didn't break down or something like that, because that could have happened. You know, like it's
This is true.
it's one of those weeks where you go and start your car. You know, like
last week I was having pretty bad internet issues and that stopped, so that could be going on at the moment as well, and that would have been a fun thing to put into the mix this morning. But so
Would
far
make
so
recording
good.
enjoyable.
Yeah, still on dial up down there, so it is quite hard. You know?
Loser.
Well, for me, I've not had anything too exciting. The most exciting thing I've done is I've rearranged all my Oscars. I was playing a bit of what do they call it? Musical fish tanks. So basically, I've got one 2.5 meter tank and one 1.5 meter tank. And in the 1.5 meter tank, there was 5 Oscars. And then in the 2.5 meter tank, there was 1 Oscar and an arowana. But they were fine for like 2 years, and then they decided they hate each other. But that Oscar can't go with the other Oscars because he has a problem with one of the other ones. So basically, what I had to do is put the one out of the 2.5 meter tank into a bucket, and then move all the other Oscars. And then once they were all out, put him in the 1.5 meter tank. So now in my big tank, I've got the arowana and 5 Oscars, and then in the 1.5 meter tank, I've got just the 1 Oscar and a severum and a ghost knife and some feather fins. So yeah, that was exciting. He's still sulking about it, but
that makes more sense, though, right? Have the most fish in the biggest tank, and then the one antisocial fish in the big enough but smaller
pretty
tank.
much. That was what I was always gonna do, but I didn't know if I was gonna like split them up and try keep like a pair in that 1.5 meter tank, or like I didn't know if the other one was gonna sort it out with the arowana or what. So we did have to wait a while, but we figured it out, and everyone seems happy as now. No one's fighting.
Also moving them is a little bit of a mission. Like they're not easy to catch and move and stuff. You get soaked, and pretty much you got to handle them, and like they're not easy just to
it's
catch
not like
a little
moving
neon and move them around. Yeah,
exactly.
So it does take a bit.
That was what I was up to.
Is the antisocial one that can't be with friends? Is his name Oscar the Grouch?
No, his name is Jeremy.
That's
I don't know why.
Name to call him Grouch.
I named him when he was like maybe like 5 centimeters, and turns out him is a her, but I don't want to change it. That you can't change his name now; it's too late. So
he's got ears, and she responds to it.
Nah, I just would feel bad, basically. But
Jeremy can identify as whatever he/she wants to,
Exactly, and I mean it doesn't matter. Like he doesn't know what I'm talking about, so. But he's not that much of a grouch. It's just this one particular red tiger called Rambo that he just hates. They just can't get along. But I wanted Rambo to be with the other one, so it's just like, it's like high school.
Crazy how sometimes there's 2 fish that just cannot be anywhere near each other, but with separated, no issues whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. Like on their own, they're both so calm and they just do their own thing. But and because they were together for like 6 months before all hell broke loose, and then just all of a sudden they just wanted to murder each other, and there was nothing you could do to stop it.
Maybe Jeremy likes girls, and maybe the other Oscar also likes Jeremy, and Jeremy's not interested, so that's why Jeremy's fighting back.
No, I think they both just like violence.
Okay.
Well, one's called Rambo. I mean, you probably didn't do any favors there.
I have a good story about Rambo if you guys want to hear it. It'll take a couple minutes, but
I did have a question about your Oscars. Are they pairs? Is there any pairs? Are you planning to breed them, or do you think there's already too many Oscars out there in the world?
I don't know if there is the other which one is it? The other red tiger and one of the albino tigers. I'm pretty sure they're going to be a pair. What the albino red tiger is probably a little bit too small to be super confident, but regardless, I don't want to breed them because it's like Oscars are very easy to get anyway, and obviously they have some specialist care requirements that's not the same as like if I was breeding, bedders or something. So that means they would be harder to home. It's easy to get them anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I was just asking that question because I know some people. You got 5, you're probably going to have a pair, and we do like it. It's cool to breed them, and I be a cool project. But then what do you do with them? I'm sure you could find them all homes, but not homes where they're going to end up.
Yeah,
actually
it'd be a big mission. Yeah, the only time I would breed them is if I knew I could house them all myself. Like, if I had a whole bunch of clients wanting to set up an Oscar tank, and like, I wanted to keep some for myself, and like I have, a friend who wants a group or whatever, then that would be the only time I'd do it, I think. I wouldn't like, and then if I could sell a few as well, that's fine, but I wouldn't want to rely on it as the, like, if I can't do that, I'm going to be stuck with them kind of thing.
And I guess there are a lot of people out there that can house them and have give them good homes. So,
for sure.
Those people should be able to find an Oscar if they want one. Yeah,
exactly. And it's not like they're expensive or like difficult to find or anything. Regardless,
no.
Like if someone comes and wants an Oscar, I can always get them an Oscar. So, it's not that kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I also hate to think how many fry they would have.
I have no idea, but it would be a big number.
They would be prolific little buggers, I imagine. You'd end up with
hundreds. 100%.
You'd have to
be easy.
It'd be interesting to know what the success rate would be, though. Like they might produce hundreds, but they might be one of those fish that produce hundreds really easily, but don't have a high success rate running through to adulthood. Like royal whiptails, for example, they produce massive numbers on a regular base, but it's because they don't survive that well. So I'd be curious to know what the survival rate of an Oscar would be.
I imagine
it would be pretty good.
I imagine Oscars are probably the type of thing that some of the fry will grow so fast they'll end up eating all the smaller fry.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Especially in a smaller tank, probably.
Yeah.
If you had 100 of them, you'd have a lot of natural selection going on there.
Yeah, definitely, I'd say.
It's probably like a bit of a good thing because, again, don't want to get overrun with the things.
Nah. It's like breeding anything like that, Frontosa or anything like that in New Zealand. Yeah, it's quite a hard one to house them.
I have some opinions about breeding Frontosa, but we're not going to talk about that today. That'll be an episode in itself.
Yeah. There's a reason why you don't have Frontosa in your tanks in the store, right?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there's probably like 4 reasons, but yeah.
I feel targeted.
Well, no, but you can house them properly, but I'd say you'll be in the minority of, because we'll get into it. I absolutely love them. I think they're fantastic fish, but not the easiest to house, and one that's very, very commonly not housed correctly, incorrect, with imbunas that beat the hell out of them, or like in a tiny little tank or something like that.
Usually in a tank that's too small, and usually with Mimbuna and stuff like that are just chewing the crap out of them.
Too vicious, yeah.
Sit in the back of the tank, just overwhelmed and going, what the hell's going on? I'm just a big dopey deep water fish that wants to chill, and all these guys
sit by a rock and not move for 3 days.
All these guys are hyperactive, and they're cruising around everywhere, stealing all my food, ripping my fins off. It sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that's pretty much the life for a Frontosa.
Not always, because if you keep them right, there is nothing cooler.
And they're cool fish when they get bright, yes. I don't keep them either because I can't house them, so I don't.
I'm sure you could house them if you put your mind to it.
I've probably got some tanks that'll be okay, but but I don't. I'm not that committed, so I don't do it. I'm not that committed.
It's Helensville. There's so much room.
It's
Second Fishroom, Frontosa room.
Nah,
kick out your flat, mate.
Yeah, kick him out. Just put a big Frontosa pool in there.
You've got a pool.
No.
Heat that up. You've got options here, man.
Yeah, I think Kim said that she doesn't want to. The kids don't want to use the pool this summer, so I'm allowed to use it to put fish in over summer. She's over there making
That's
her lunch.
awesome.
Shaking her head right now at me.
Oh well, if we never see you again, we will know why.
Yeah, I'll be in the pool.
Yep, concrete shoes.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Well,
She's shaking her head. Anyway.
So today is Cam's choice for the topic. So why don't you share with the class? Well, I suppose all the listeners will know because they can read, but share with the class what the topic is.
Today's topic we're going to talk about is Blackwater Aquariums.
And by we, he means he's going to talk about Blackwater Aquariums, and
well, you're going to get involved
Cam
as
and
well,
I are going to
Ryan.
offer nothing.
You're going to get involved, Ryan, because this is a subject that I know you know a lot about. I thought I'd go gentle on you and not talk about aquatic plants because I know how much you love that topic. So I was thinking about you when I decided that.
I'd rather talk about plants than Blackwater, and I even put my little caption here for plants because
You preempted that, did you?
I thought that's what you were going to make us do, but anyway.
I threw you a curveball on purpose.
Yeah. All right, Cam. So, what is if I'm a person who has never even heard this word before? What the hell are you talking about?
So, Blackwater Aquariums. I think most people think of it as like a dirty-looking aquarium or dirty-looking water, but there's a lot more to it. The premise of that is you're essentially trying to lower your pH a little bit. You're really trying to generally mimic where a lot of the fish species that we have in New Zealand around the world are coming from, trying to set up more of a natural body of water for them, using things like botanicals, leaves, wood, random pods and things like that. So all those go into the aquarium, they begin to break down, they release tannins from it, tannic acid, and that sort of tints the water to that really nice golden amber sort of coloration. So that's the sort of short and quick base of what that is.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like basically if you go down to a little stream or something, then trying to replicate that. And part of that is that, all these leaves and like branches and like little nuts and seeds and stuff falls off the trees and like gets blown into the water and that. And then that leaf litter kind of, or not leaf litter, but natural, or almost waste, but not really, becomes part of the ecosystem down in the water for these particular types of fish.
Yeah, correct. That's the natural way of it when it's sort of in the wild, how that kind of occurs. Yeah.
So if you're listening on the podcast, Ryan just left and he's come back grinning from ear to ear because he's changed.
I actually crashed.
He's changed his name to "Let's Stick Tea in a Tank." Sounds great. So I'm not going to comment on that, but that's my little audio commentary for you podcast listeners.
And to be fair, my internet did die, so I thought, well, I need to change it to something more appropriate.
Why don't you get out there and pedal it?
Because we've got power in Helen, so we plug it into the wall.
Barely.
Sometimes we've got power. That's why I've got a generator. But anyway, that's a different story.
Yep. But yeah, so what sort of fish would you say would normally be the one people would be looking at for this type of a tank? Like, if you're setting it up at home, what kind of fish would you be more thinking about would go in this tank?
Yeah, so like a vast majority of tetras, for example, work really well. Amazon-based fish, a lot of rasboras, barbs, a lot of corridoras. Most things not most things, but like your Southeast Asian rainforest fish and your Amazon-based rainforest fish, they're all in that kind. A lot of them are all in that mix to be able to be, or like to be in tannin-stained water. Apistogrammas go really well with it. and there's a lot of fish that'll depending on the season, will go from clear water to black water, like clown loaches, for example. Depending on the year, depending on the season, they'll be in the fast-running clear water, and then they'll go into the tinted tannin water later on. I can't remember if it's to spawn or the other way around, but there's a lot of fish that migrate through different parts, and depending on the seasons, all that kind of stuff as well. So it's quite a vast variety of fish that we keep that can be very happy and content in black water, and quite often they show more natural coloration and natural behavior when they go into that sort of tank.
Yep, yeah, for sure. So if I'm sitting at home and thinking I want to give this a go, what sort of, the word is botanicals, which basically means all these little like leaves and seeds and sticks and stuff.
Yeah.
What sort of botanicals might be good ones that I might want to use or might want to look into if I'm wanting to do this at home, at least as far as what's available in New Zealand? And I don't know if some are more easy to use than others, all this kind of thing. So yeah.
So the classic stuff you can buy in a shop would be like your older cones, which produce a huge amount of tannin. Indian almond leaves are another option, and then your standard driftwood will produce that as well. So that'll give you your base of what you can sort of work with. But there's a lot of other leaves that have come onto the market recently. Mango leaves, banana leaves are available. There's a couple others as well. Or alternatively, you can go find your own, go foraging, collect your own oak leaves, collect your own birch twigs, and all that kind of stuff. There's plenty of stuff that can be found as well as purchased if you're trying to recreate something, which is quite nice. The limitations we have here would be in seed pods. Overseas, there's a lot of big seed pods that are available. They're a bit harder to come by here, but in saying that, eucalyptus pods work. They're just a little bit small. I've always known them as bommy whackers, the round things with lots of spikes on them. At least that's what they were called at school. They can be used. So there's still things that you can collect that will replicate that pod type that look. But we're definitely limited when it comes to pods. But leaves and wood and that kind of stuff we're in abundance for that. Alternatively, there's also a lot of pre-made liquids you can use that will tint the water and begin playing around with the pH. I normally have one sitting here, but I don't. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are fairly average. So take that with a grain of salt, or you can make your own Blackwater tea up basically with rooibos tea. Just seep it like you would a normal cup of tea, and then pour it into your tank, and that'll stain your water as well.
Yeah. So when you say, particularly with the alder cones, I have a little story.
I can actually talk to the elder cones too. So you finish your story, and then I can talk to them as well.
Oh, good.
So I've got very little to add, so I'm going to add.
All right. Well, ages ago, I had a pair of, what were they? Albino longfin bristlenose I was breeding, and this was like a very, very like kind of it kind of looked like a rubbish tip, like just like all these broken down leaves, and like there was just all sorts of it was kind of this natural junk because I was trying to give them as much to forage on as I could.
That would look amazing.
One day it was very cool. I do have a picture of it somewhere. I'll find it. But one day I decided I was going to chuck in some alder cones, and so I think they come in like the ones I bought was like a 20 pack or something, and I just chucked in like 10 one afternoon, and then I left it, and then I come back the next day, and it was like you couldn't even see like 2 centimeters into the tank. It was like it wasn't black water, it was like nighttime water. Like it was horrific. So, and then obviously, that was no fun. So I think I left them in, but I took out like half of them and then did a couple big water changes and stuff. But when you say it's the most strong, it's definitely the most strong. Like I would say add a few, then add a few more, then add a few more, and like build it up. Don't just like chuck them in like I did, because then you'll never see your fish and it's boring.
Yeah, older cones.
That was my little story.
When it comes to the coloration of of the releasing of the tannins.
Yeah. They're pretty it's strong stuff, not for the faint of heart, or for the small of tank. So I believe Ryan has a story he wants to tell.
Yes, so in the dark ages, before I converted to proper fish, I used to keep epistogramma. So I had maybe 20 epistogramma tanks, and I used to go and forage for oak leaves and elder cones and stuff. I used to know where they all were in my local area, drive around every weekend, go and pick up bags of the bloody things, know when they were in season and they're all going to fall off before the council came in and mowed it. It was always a bad Saturday when I went out and I'd mowed the lawns and mowed all the bloody cones up and all the leaves that I needed. So I was always trying to beat them down there and trying to pick up as many as I could while they were dropping off the trees in the right ripeness to be used. So yes, I did, and then I did the same thing as Cam, poured them into tanks and made the water look like shit, just because it was a natural environment for the fish.
And I bet your epistogrammas loved it.
Oh yeah, they did. They bred
Yep.
and then they did what epistos do and die. So that's why I got sick of them.
Another massive bonus of doing Blackwater and setting up plenty of botanicals is it's a really good food source for a lot of fish. You'll just have natural things turn up, natural little scummy things, little bits of algae and stuff like that your fish will be able to pick off and eat on as well, which is, again, just continues to build that natural recreation of what you're trying to set up.
That is something that I'm a massive fan of, especially for like if you're keeping or like breeding something and you've got heaps of fry, just like natural, like pretty much like crap for them to forage on, like little bits of decaying leaves or like bits of algae, or like I'm sure there's all these little microflora and microfauna that you can't actually know are there realistically. But you like always see them just like picking at a leaf or like a stick or like a sponge filter or something, and that's just so good for them because it's number one, like obviously natural behavior, but number two, like it's just good natural food for them, and it's good for you as well because it's free, so YOLO. But it's a win-win situation. I don't think it's utilized enough. I think there's a lot of too sterile tanks.
Yeah, I agree. I've spoken to a couple of people that breed whiptails, which can be notoriously quite hard to raise, and they've seen the most success when they've had a bit of leaf litter and a bit of mulm and a bit of gunk kind of stuff in the bottom for not only the fry to hide in and have shelter, because that's another benefit of it all, but also the little microorganisms there gives them a constant supply of food for them to chew on and rasp on, and they've had a far higher success rate of raising fry when going that way as opposed to going on the really clean, sterile glass bottom type scenario. So it definitely benefits a lot of fish in that sense as well.
Yeah, for sure. The other question that I have that is one that seems to crop up quite a lot in the, I suppose, Blackwater circles is, if I'm wanting to do, obviously I'm trying to do quite a natural looking tank. What sort of how does a planted tank interact with a Blackwater tank? Like, is it is it like a Venn diagram where you got a bit of overlap, or is it one where it's like you choose one or you choose the other one, but it's very difficult to have that sort of best of both worlds?
Yep, you can make that work. You just got to pick your plants quite well. Obviously, the tinted water is going to minimize the amount of light that's going through, so you're wanting to find plants that are quite happy with that. Also, the water becomes quite acidic, or can become quite acidic, so you want plants that will handle that as well. So generally, your low light plants, your cryptocorynes, Java ferns, and Nubius, stuff like that, go fairly well in Blackwater. Everyone's favorite duckweed goes really well. It also, I think duckweed goes really well in Blackwater tank because it just continues to emphasize that dark tinted sort of underwater look quite well. And Indian fern goes pretty well as well, but that's obviously taking the light from the top. But yeah, you absolutely can. A lot of Blackwater swamps are, full of peat and that kind of thing, and cryptocorynes absolutely love that dense layer of peat. So as as your botanicals break down, they begin to go run through your substrate, enrich it more. Your krips work with that, and they become more intense and they grow even stronger. So it's absolutely achievable to have Blackwater planted tanks as long as you're just picking the right plants and not picking stuff looking for the light.
Is there any plants that you'd probably say would be better to avoid for this sort of situation that might not do as well compared to some of the ones that you've mentioned?
Yeah, as a general, I don't think stem plants work that well in Blackwater. In saying that, there's definitely stem plants that live in Blackwater Aquarium. But as a general rule, I would avoid them unless you're wanting to kind of get that real leggy look because you're trying to search up for the light, which can work quite nice as well as a bit of a more natural kind of vibe. But yeah,
like an accent piece.
Yeah. I don't know what that is.
You probably wouldn't be able to grow carpeting plants and stuff in Blackwater, would you?
Yeah. Glossostigmas and stuff like that. Hair grasses aren't going to go so well. And saying that, dwarf Sagittaria can go pretty well in tinted water as well. That's okay in the lower light. But yeah, anything that wants that higher light isn't gonna succeed very well.
Yeah,
you can do the whole plant. You could do the whole plant out of the tank thing if you wanted to. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say that, like having the roots dangling down is quite a cool look. At like,
that's what I've seen a few cool ones over online. Eh?
Yeah.
And that's why I like floating Indian fern, because that root mass just becomes so dense and intense. It really sort of fills in that
and it does grow out of the tank eventually as well too.
Yeah, and
the other thing I'd say as well,
spawn in the roots as well.
With that as well, we were saying like how it's good for foraging. Like those roots just become like a big, almost filter and just collect all these little bits, and then you see like all the little fishes going around like picking at the little things that got caught in between the roots, and then it's so that's a good choice. I for some reason can't grow that plant. It always just keels over and dies, but I do really like it.
It really needs an established tank before it goes well. Like if the tank's too clean and too new, it just does nothing. As soon as your tank hits sort of 6 months and gets a little bit dirty and a bit more established, absolutely fine. But yeah, when it's fresh, it just hates life.
I used to grow
fair, I haven't tried it for a while, so I'll give it a go.
I used to grow it like a bloody weed. It used to go mad. It used to take over all my tanks.
Yeah, once it's going, it goes crazy. And the good thing about it is because it grows so big, you can hook a clump out, chuck a couple leaves back in, and within 3 weeks, you've got a big piece again.
When you do a water change and you break some of it up, it just grows into more plants and just goes mad because it's quite soft, eh?
Yeah, doesn't transport very well.
No, I might have to give it a go, give it another go, and see if I can bring it back to life.
I can put some in my fish room and grow it for you.
I've got plenty if you want me to send you some.
All right, we might have to discuss this after the podcast, but I'm down. So I don't know. I thought unless you have anything else that you wanted to kind of go over on the topic, I thought it might be fun to maybe talk about a few ideas for like good setups that you would do that would make the most of the whole Blackwater side of things, like a few kind of almost dream tanks to really kind of show people what it can be, and like it doesn't necessarily have to just be like a kind of murky looking crap tank. Like,
can you do
one that you'll get a lot out of?
Can you do like a 2-foot one and a 3-foot one or something? You know, just to sort of give people some ideas for what they could do on a commonly available tank they might have as a beginner. You know,
and do a 6-foot one just for a laugh.
Shits and gigs. According to that, I guess the other two relatively beneficial things is they provide really good spawning grounds for fish that want to spawn in that kind of environment. You know, like Ryan was talking about the pistogrammas and that kind of stuff. The leaves become their own little cave settings that they can sort of go in and work from. Egg scattering fish like tetras and whatnot drop into the leaves. The eggs just drop underneath. So they become quite beneficial for that sort of thing if you're wanting to spawn some of your softer water fish. It's just a natural way of them that kind of occurring, which is a nice benefit as well. And the other thing is that a lot of people like to boil like their wood and their leaves and stuff like that before they put it in. Personally, I don't think it's overly necessary, but a lot of people will boil it and throw out the tea that comes with it and put the leaves in. I found that this breaks up your botanicals really quickly, and most stuff that is harvested pretty cleanly, so there's not a really major issue of pesticides and things like that. A little bit different if you're collecting your own close to roads and stuff like that. It might be worthwhile giving you a wash and a clean off, but generally speaking, you don't need to boil that up.
The thing I have seen with that kind of thing is because a lot of people like the look of the leaves and botanicals and stuff, but don't necessarily like the tannic water. But I don't know. I've never really looked into it that hard. But I've seen you can get like all these like rubber leaves, rubber like as in like made out of rubber, not like from a rubber plant, but like rubber leaves or like. I mean, I suppose you can get plastic and like silk and all this, so you can like replicate that, but not have to do the leaves breaking down, making a mess, and the tannins and that. And I've seen some like even like aqua decor and stuff, which is obviously going to be like, sell your kidneys kind of expensive, but like they just look so awesome. So that might be something. Maybe I'll look into it more if anyone's interested, but something for people to look into if that sounds like you.
Because I guess a lot of people don't. I guess the Blackwater tanks for me are a real enthusiast sort of tank. Like, a lot of people want something that's clean and looks impressive in someone's lounge if someone walks in that doesn't keep fish. And if someone walks in and doesn't keep fish and sees this fish tank that looks like someone's poured their tea into it, your tank's dirty, you need to clean it, so it's really, I think it is a next level sort of thing where you're really into it for you,
It's for a nerd
totally
like us.
Totally goes against the general rule of your fish tank sparkly, you can see through it and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm on strict instructions from my family that I'm not allowed another dirty tank in the lounge. So that's why
maybe what people should do is just make a little sign and attach it to it, so that you can give some education to your family or like visitors or something about what's going on.
I'm an idiot, and I want to have a tank that's brown and I can't see the fish.
Yeah, well, that's why you're involved in the 3D podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I guess the key distinction too is even though the water's brown, the water is still like your parameters are still fine. It's not it's not dirty. It just looks muddy and dirty.
Yeah.
It's
like clean but not polished, I guess, or like pristine.
We should get away from the word clean because I don't think aquarium should ever be clean. Not a successful aquarium anyway. Clean sounds like you're killing all the bacteria and sterilizing it, but they're still the parameters are still good and they're still a healthy, well maintained aquarium.
Yeah, like you're still looking for no ammonia, no nitrite, and no nitrates. It's just that it's a different way of doing that. The botanicals break down and they cause different sort of chemical balance and stuff like that. And once you get your pH quite low, I think we're talking under 5 or something like that, ammonia becomes non-harmful and it turns into ammonium from memory. And so all of that kind of happens as well. But that's a different conversation for a more intense chat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, but makes a lot of sense.
The other one is
thinking about at least.
Yeah, people talk about whether or not they should remove the breaking down leaves and that sort of stuff. I'm on the side of let it be, let it just become what it will become. But there's plenty of people that will take those leaf shells or what do you want to call them out and replace them with new ones. But they're all part of it. Yeah, that's actually your own.
That's what you're trying to create. You're trying to.
Yeah,
it's quite cool. You often see like on the internet and that pictures of like Blackwater tanks, and they got like almost the skeletons of the leaves. It's like quite a cool little aspect to it, I suppose.
Yeah, and it just enriches the substrate. Again, if you're growing plants, it becomes part of it, and places for fry to forage and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I'm all about just leaving it in there, but plenty of people take them out and replace them with new stuff. So your aquarium, you do it whatever way you want to do it.
Yeah, sounds good. So, I suppose going back to my previous question, Cam. Oh no, unless Ryan's got something to say.
Like filtration, you wouldn't want really high flow and like wave makers and all that sort of stuff if you're doing this, would you?
Yeah, correct. It'll blow everything around.
Because you just end up with you never get anything to settle and actually sit there and create. So you're probably looking low flow, like sponge filters, that sort of thing. Just to
Do you know
bubble away.
what if I think of Blackwater, I always think by default, like a sponge filter or a box filter. Like the idea of like a canister filter or something is just like doesn't even like it's like that's an option too. But like I'm always just thinking like when it's something in the corner bubbling away that you can't really see. Put a leaf on top of it and you won't see it, so it's like a win-win situation.
Yeah. I've used hang-on backs a couple of times. They work quite well, and I've done a Matt and Hamburg system which worked really well with it as well.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and again,
just become part of it.
Yeah, through the filter, it was great. Yeah.
That would be really cool because if you did one like instead of because most people do it along the side, if you did one across the back and just left it, it would get all gunked up with stuff, and it would just look like a 3D background.
You can do the
corners. That would be so
you
cool.
can do the corners. The back corners is quite cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a Blue Planet end on end, so it was that short end.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind putting maybe some Java food on there and let that kind of climb it up the wall as well, and just sort of become part of it, but didn't get that far.
People would, I think, for that kind of thing, a lot of people would worry about it, like the flow getting cut down in that. But I think with that, it's like pretty much like there's so much like you're kind of maximizing nature, if you will, to a point where it's like it doesn't matter if the water's very, very barely even flowing through it because there's so much microbial activity and like all that kind of stuff that you'll have like the world's most healthy tank in terms of like chemically and like microbially and everything. Yeah, and like you're just letting nature handle it, whereas like obviously like as a cichlid keeper you're probably doing more of the nature's role in terms of like the water changes and like big filtration and that, but in that kind of situation you just take your hands away and just let nature do its thing.
For a cichlid tank, you usually got much higher stocking, and you usually chucking in much more food.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got a lot more you've got to actually remove, So, but in this sort of situation, you're probably running a lighter stocking and a more natural environment. So,
there's more space for nature to play around, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the only problem with obviously letting it all go wild is when you do need to clean those filters, because after a year or so, you're going to need to. It's going to be a giant mess, but it'll all settle and sort itself out again. That's the cool thing about it.
That's all part of the fun, I suppose.
Yeah, like it's just going to be what it is.
Just pretend it's the rainy season or something, and everything's getting gunked out, and then it takes a little bit to settle, and then boom, more nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, going back to my previous question, Cam, what are some good setups that you would personally love to see done or replicated or want to have in your horizon for some point?
So one that I've seen a couple of years back in a hobbyist house was he did a small pencil fish setup. It was only a 2-foot tank. I think it was 2-foot tank, and just had those. It was the red pencil fish. The name's eluding me off the top of my head. But
the backwards ones?
Could have been, yeah. The ones that swim slightly more straight than the other ones, which swim on a wet angle. But they were the brightest pencil fish I've seen ever. And they just looked comfortable and content. And it was really simple. You just had a bed of leaves on the bottom, a couple of pieces of wood hanging around. And I think he was growing moss. And they just totally captivated me straight away how gorgeous that little simple setup was. Like it's really easy to replicate, and those fish in particular just stood out how stunning they were. So that's something I wouldn't mind doing, a real minimal look type of one. I set up a neon tetra Blackwater tank a few years back. That was a 4-foot tank, but it was quite shallow. A massive amount of leaves at the bottom and a lot of spiderwood coming up. That is the tank that I've had the least issues with neons on in my life, which led me to believe that half the reason that we have issues with neons is we're not actually keeping them correctly. And if we put them in the lower pH with a bit of tannic acid, they actually become a really nice fish, but most people don't do that.
And
so
there's a little bit of, I mean, it's really hard to prove, but there is some anecdotal and some theoretical antibacterial, or at least health benefits to keeping the fish that are designed to live in this environment in this environment.
Yes.
I guess a tetra or something like that lives in the Amazon, and when it floods, the water's all like that. They're going to be more settled, so they're going to be less stressed, so that maybe they're going to be a little bit less susceptible to stuff. So, it's really hard to prove a lot of that stuff, and I sometimes doubt a lot of it too. But it's really hard to prove immunity. We can't see it or measure it, or
Correct.
you know what I mean.
I think with that kind of stuff, it's like it definitely won't hurt at the very least, So why not?
Currently in the shop, we've got a 3-foot tank set up with cherry barbs, pearl gouramis, and dwarf chain loaches, which I'm absolutely loving. That's just a couple of really big bits of spiderwood, some assorted leaves that I've found that I've literally foraged from around my area. Just drop them in, let them settle. Everything's going really well on that. The cherry barbs are really beginning to show some fantastic colour through that, and the pearl gouramis look really happy. So that's a bit of a Southeast Asian type of scenario, which I'm really happy with. I've done a black neon Blackwater tank, which I really enjoyed. I wouldn't mind doing potentially another one of them sometime soon. But also the clown loach tank that I keep saying I'm going to do and I never have done, or I haven't done. I'm contemplating doing Blackwater for that as well.
That'd be cool. I reckon their colors or like pattern, I guess, works really well because like I remember it was probably a while ago I saw it wasn't clown loaches, it was like kulu loaches, but like same thing. In with a bunch of leaf litter and stuff. Oh, excuse me. And it was like just like completely blows you away. Like you wouldn't think that kind of pattern would be like their natural camouflage in that, but like man, you can see like if I was like a bird or like a predator fish or something, like there's no way I'd see that. Obviously you would see it if you're a human, but it's like it just blows you away kind of thing.
Yeah, I did one a couple of years back. I set up a 2-foot blue planet tank in my window. The window got heaps and heaps of sun all day long. So there was lots of windy-tie krips and some balance out the back, some wood, some leaves, all the normal stuff. But it got covered and full of algae, which was fantastic. I was really happy with that because it just builds that natural character through it. And I had kulu loaches, chocolate gouramis, and species of rasbora. Can't remember which species of rasbora I had. It wasn't harlequin. Might have been the copper rasbora. And the colours on the rasbora just exploded. And it was incredible watching the chocolate gourami just sort of weave their way through the leaves in the dark. And because they blended in so well, you could just see how they're a little micro ambush predator, just sort of weaving their way through and just trying to snap at little bits of live food that's floating past and stuff like that. That was by far one of my favourite tanks, and I spent countless hours just sitting there away from the family looking at it.
Oh, so that's why they don't want you to have another one, is it?
The question I have, like you talk about going and just grabbing some stuff and bunging it in, is there anything that you shouldn't put in there? Like, is there any, have we got in New Zealand, have we got any poisonous leaves? Like, is there anything nasty floating around? Like, can we put flax in there? Can we put some, like what can't you put in there? Like, I don't know. I've always just used oak and the elder cones, sweet as, but is there anything that looks like them that might be poisonous? I don't know. I don't think so, but.
So, eucalyptus leaves and eucalyptus bark are a no-go. They'll, from what I understand, they'll poison the water, but the eucalyptus pods are absolutely fine.
It's from the sap, isn't it?
It's something along those lines,
Like it's toxic or something.
Yeah.
And you probably wouldn't stick any green foliage in there, right?
Yeah, I've saying that I've known people to put green birch and manuka leaves and stuff like that, and manuka branches and twigs and stuff into their tanks with no issues. So,
but like you wouldn't put pine in there, like green pine or anything.
No, I'd avoid pine. Yeah, I believe that some flax seeds or arms or whatever you want to call them can produce cyanide when it's put into water.
Nice.
So I have put some into water before with fish, and I haven't had any issues. Whether it's a different species or whether it doesn't cause any issues, I'm not entirely sure. But the research that I did said it will produce cyanide. So be cautious with some of that. And saying that, I've taken the seed pods off flax and put them in quite happily.
But they're quite woody, aren't they? So you wouldn't expect to.
Yeah, and they almost look like a witch's broom, some of them. So
yeah,
they're the only ones that I've really found.
The other thing that I just remembered that is something that I've seen a lot of people do. I've got a friend who keeps a lot of native fish, and they, obviously you'd need a bigger tank to do it, but people put like pungas in there, just like the big punga logs is just like a big branch type thing. Chuck those in, and then the way it kind of breaks down in an underwater environment is it gives a lot of like nooks and crannies and stuff, which works perfect for like your little potentially more shy native fish. But I was I don't know enough to say I want to exercise caution because I have no idea if it's poisonous or not, but from what I've seen it's not, and it looks so like just like absolutely awesome basically with these native fish. But I mean, I suppose it would be fine for anything, but that's the application I've seen it in before.
Is there any risk if that would is it going to cause issues as it rots? I mean, because it's quite a soft sort of decaying wood, isn't it, punga? Like it'll break down. Is it going to? Does it stuff with your parameters if it starts rotting in the tank? Like because obviously rotting wood stinks and it's breaking down. Or does the filter and nature sort of take care of that?
I've never had any issues with things breaking down. The filtration and whatever's being built up in the tank seems to have done that job pretty well. But saying that, if a big chunk in a small body of water might make a total big difference.
From my understanding, it's like when something like that is breaking down, it just is basically like a farm for all sorts of little microbes and like bacteria and stuff that I think deal with a lot of it without having it just like completely nuke your tank. But again, I'm not a Blackwater expert. This is just from my basic understanding of looking into it briefly a few times. But from my understanding, like within reason, like obviously if you put more wood in than water, probably there's going to be a problem. But for the most part, I don't think it makes too much of a problem.
I think it'll probably come down to like every single wood or tree or leaf or whatever will have a different chemical breakdown.
Yeah.
Regardless, and how that reacts with whatever water you've got might be the thing.
Probably there'd even be variation between like sources, like compared to like if you get one from, if you buy punga from Mitre 10 or if you find one in a bush behind your house, like I reckon there'd be so much difference like in terms of the bacteria that's living there and, any little microfauna and microflora and all this kind of stuff. Because it kind of goes back to something actually Ryan likes talking about a lot is with when you're talking about the cycling, one of the common old folks methods is like just go rub your hands in the dirt and then go clean your hands off in the tank, and you kind of pinch all those little microbes and stuff out of the dirt or the compost or whatever and put them in your tank. So probably the sources of your botanicals is going to vary quite a lot in that regard. Like a mass-produced punga from like that's been sitting in a warehouse for 6 weeks is going to be different to one that got pulled out of a bush 20 minutes ago in terms of what it can introduce to your tank and like what benefits there are and potentially what pathogens. But again, I wouldn't worry about that. But yeah,
I've never heard of someone rubbing their hands in dirt and then using it to cycle a tank.
Oh, there's lots of interesting.
This is
there is lots of interesting stuff on the internet. The bacteria that lives in dirt is the same as the beneficial bacteria that lives in the aquarium. So some people have definitely done studies, and it cycles faster than a lot of the snake oil products if you just put a handful of dirt out of your garden in it. And there, again, we all have different opinions on it, and I think we all need to actually. I think we all need to do some trials on it and actually come down with a 3 idiots definitive thing.
One day,
and some accountability and some consequences to the people that are wrong. I think
one day we will get through a podcast without mentioning stability, but it is not this day.
I was trying not to. You've already mentioned it already.
You said in the first 8 minutes.
I'm trying not to.
Well, I forgot about that.
I'm trying not to say it, but
Well, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the bacterias are good for an aquarium, and you can't get enough, basically. So, in terms of like populations and diversity,
good versus bad bacterias, but you know,
I'd say also the other thing is potentially even like sort of neutral bacterias, like one that's not really gonna, like a lot of these ones that I was talking about, like breaking down the woods, or there's plenty of bacteria that wouldn't even like interact with fish at all or anything, just like a neutral, like kind of separate thing, but goes into making a more well-rounded and healthy ecosystem rather than fish tank, if that makes sense. And I don't think it's necessary for every tank, but if going down this Blackwater route, it's something that could be a good tool to just make it cooler, essentially. So yeah.
I think that's something that really appeals to me when it comes to Blackwater, is that you are building this ecosystem within a glass box, and you kind of allow
rather than just a fish tank.
Yeah, and you're allowing nature to do most of the heavy lifting and not so much yourself. Like, you've still got to do water changes, and you've still got to check parameters, and your fish are still got to be healthy and all that kind of stuff. But nature takes care of so much of it inside that box, compared to like Africans, for example, when you're constantly changing water and throwing in pellets of food and that kind of stuff, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like saying one's better than the other, but I think they're very, very different sort of exercises. Like, I think there is a very clear difference between a fish tank and an aquarium in that regard. Which is just in terms of the broader scope of nature in the environment. But yeah, I think it's a perfect idea. The only thing I just thought of, which I've never actually thought of before, so I'll pose this question to you, is if I have a tank that has heaps of black water and the water is very dark, would that not mess up all my liquid tests because you can't see what's going on?
That is something that I've thought myself before as well. Like, this is quite dark. How is this going to make an accurate test? It's something that I've just forged on through and done tests as per normal and just taken the reading as it were. But it is something that's crossed my mind that this water is pretty tinty. Brown and yellow make brown. But it's never really
I was like,
too much of a difference.
Huh. Yeah, I never thought of that before until just then. So I might have to do some science, but yeah, I was just thinking, like, if all the tests are brown, what are your parameters, you know?
Yeah. Maybe it's a spot for dip tests.
Interesting. You'll get cancelled for that, but could be worth it.
There is nothing wrong with this test for an indication.
Google reckons that no, you can't get accurate testing because of the tint from the water. So you still get your color changes with a lot of the tests, I reckon. Like, ones that turn from yellow to blue or whatever, you drop on the bin. So I think
you still get a sort of fair idea of what's going on.
I think a lot of that stuff is indicative only anyway. Like, you'd be able to tell. To me, if you're testing for ammonia, if you pick up any ammonia, you've got something you need to work on. It doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, if you've got really high ammonia, your fish are probably dead anyway. So, I mean, or still looking like crap. But if you're picking up some ammonia, okay, cool, I've got a cycling issue. It doesn't matter if it's 0.1 or 0.2. You've got a cycling issue. You know what I mean? Yeah. And same with nitrates. If you're picking up some nitrates, you know what's going on. If you're picking up some nitrites, you know what's going on. so you can kind of do a bit of that.
It gives a gauge. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing
same with
I just thought of for the liquid test kits is probably what you'd want to do is just test it quite regularly. And even if it's, completely wrong colors, you'd be looking for stuff changing rather than comparing it against changing compared to last time compared to changing compared to the information card that they give you,
And you'd be able to
probably
test
makes
your
more
pH,
sense.
and you'd know that it's going to the low side.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you'd be able to see it's not going to a high pH scale; it's going to a low pH scale. So I've got a low pH. Cool, that's what I'm trying to achieve.
Got a Blackwater tank, you've got 8.0 pH. Something's going wrong there.
Yeah, and it would tell you. You'll be able to see that. Whether you're at 7.8 or 8, you'll definitely be able to tell which direction you're going at, rather than exactly what you're doing. So you could use it as an indication, definitely.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, does anyone else have any closing remarks or anything else that we've missed on the topic or anything like that?
No, I'm happy to. I'm happy to put that one to bed.
You've contributed a lot, Ryan. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Well, I have
just like
actually. I have dabbled with it before, so with my pistos for a couple of years, so I do know a little bit about it that I'd actually wanted to try and forget.
I just want to add that Blackwater aquariums, or keeping a botanical aquarium, is actually really fun, and you do get a lot of return or reward from the way that your fish behave and the coloration that comes through, which I don't think you get if you're not keeping them that way, if they're sort of meant to be that. And it's absolutely worth giving one a go if you haven't tried one before. They are a good fun tank.
It's been a while since I've done it, and this conversation has very much got me thinking. I might have to see what I can do. See if I can figure something out. Find some space or something. Because why not?
Yeah, it's a good time. They're just it's just another one of those different ways that you can keep an aquarium in your house or in your shop or your work or whatever. That's just the infinite ways of keeping fish, basically. No one way is right, no one's wrong.
And the cool thing is that you can get into it in your own way and do your own thing and enjoy it your own way. It doesn't have to be, it's not my thing anymore. I'm not into it at all, but I can still appreciate a good one and still appreciate someone that's into it because it's cool. That's what they're into and they're doing it.
Just another side meat within the hobby.
Yeah, that is cool.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
All right, cool. We done then.
We are.
Yep. Think so.
Sweet.
Your turn for a mystery topic next week, Ryan. What are we going to talk about?
So now you guys know all about sticking tea bags in fish tanks, and you can make tea in your tank, and you can be an expert at that. To talk to if there's enough power and phone connection to Nelson, you know who to talk to. You can send him a message. Maybe send him mail. And he might write you back.
Send him a pigeon.
When the horses and carriages are running.
Send him a telegram.
Has to be
send him a runner.
Envelope.
And you know what to do now if you want to make your fish tank look brown and dirty.
Just
next week, it's been a fun one for me. Next week we're going to do something equally exciting. I don't know what that is yet. Apparently, it's my mystery topic. So it'll probably be something not about African cichlids because that's too predictable. So,
throwing us a curveball, eh?
And make sure you get onto that merch, that like and subscribe. And the key thing is we want to get some questions, and we just don't want Cam to make them all up from his imaginary listeners that he thinks he's got. Okay, so we actually want some real people. That want some questions.
I have good news. Someone asked, I think it was 3 questions on the YouTube the other day. So we've at least got one real person asking questions. So we've got progress.
There we go. And if the mystery people down in Nelson actually exist, just reach out to us and let us know you're not a real person. Maybe if you do it on Facebook, I'm going to think it's Cam creating a fake profile, but I may entertain you. All right. So talk to you guys later.
Only one way to find out, eh?
Yeah.
All right.
See ya.
See you later.
See you later.